There are two genealogies in the Gospels. One is in Luke and the other here in Matthew. Matthew, being a Jewish Gospel, traces Jesus' genealogy from Joseph. This is a legal genealogy, from Joseph back to Abraham. Because it's Jewish, from Joseph all the way back to Abraham. Luke's gospel, however, is different. It's the Gentile gospel, and this gospel traces it in reverse, but goes back to Adam. It comes from Adam down to Joseph. The difference between the Jewish and the Gentile gospel. The next thing that's interesting about this gospel is that, as you know, in Jewish tradition, in Jewish law, the person is defined as Jewish according to the mother. The mother is Jewish, and that's something that was there for the purity of the Jews, you know. They were certain who your mother was. They were fairly sure who your father was, but they were certain who your mother was. So if your mother was Jewish, then you were said to be Jewish. If your father was Jewish and your mother was Gentile, you were not regarded as Jewish. Now, keeping that in mind, it's very interesting to look at the genealogy of Jesus. There are 5 women mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus, and 4 of the 5 were not Jewish. And of the 4 non-Jewish, 3 of them were women of ill repute, Rahab and Tamar and Bathsheba. They were Gentiles. The first 2 were Canaanites, and Bathsheba was a Hittite. The 4th one was the daughter-in-law of Naomi, was Ruth, and Ruth was a Moabite, but she was a woman of great virtue. The other 3 have all sorts of bad reputations. If you go back and read, you'll find it. And then Mary is the 5th woman mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. So reading through the genealogy, you'll find all sorts of humanity, which confirms the fact that when God became human in Jesus Christ, he entered into the fullness of our humanity. I mean, he could have been born in the purity of our regal tradition, but he was born into the fullness of humanity, which offers us a very encouraging revelation that our humanity, we are welcome into God's presence in our humanity, that God visits us in our humanity. So to be fully human is to be holy, to know my humanity, and to come to a great act of faith that in the fullness of my humanity, my broken person, I am infinitely loved, and I belong to Jesus Christ. I belong to Jesus Christ in my imperfection, and the notion of the pious and perfect person is an illusion. It's encouraging for us. So when you look at, if you take time to just read the genealogy, you'll find these 5 women, and 4 of them were not Jewish. I once asked the rabbi in Jerusalem, how is it that the great patriarchs and so forth, they're not a pure Jewish, because the mothers, 4 of the 5 mothers here, were not Jewish. He said, well, they were converts. And I said, okay, I'll settle for that. But convert doesn't do it in the purity of Jewish tradition. I mean, the law of return in Israel today, the law of return says if your mother was Jewish, you're Jewish, and you may return to Israel, and you will get citizenship in Israel because you're considered Jewish. If your father was Jewish, your mother was Gentile, that's not acceptable. It shows you the humanity of Jesus Christ, not only in ourselves, but in the people around us. I mean, to understand and be patient and accepting that God becomes present to us in the brokenness of our humanity. Amen. We pause now for a moment of prayer.